Now I can let you know because of all you've shown. I've grown enough to tell you you'll always be inside of me. How many roads have gone by? So many words left unspoken. I needed to be by your side, if only to hold you forever, my heart. Forever we will be. Even when I'm gone, you'll be here in me forever. Once I dreamed that you were gone. I cried out trying to find you. I begged the dream to fade away and please awaken me. But night took a hold of my heart and left me with no one to follow. The love that is lost to the dark, I'll always remember forever, my heart. Forever you'll be. Know that when I'm gone, you'll be near to me forever in my life. Always thought I'd be yours. No one looked. I walked by, just an invitation.
starts by introducing a topic on human sex trafficking. You have to get to talk about the anger that you should feel when you hear about the helplessness in the limitations victims have without having a speech like this. I think that we could speak to the things that are going on and have been. Well, I want to start off by saying that when you're aware of abuse that's going on, and you don't, it may be subtle, it may be, things that it's there. It's a dark period of my life that I was so outraged that by the time I got back up here, that I was so angered because of what we had to go through to get help and what we had to go through to escape abuse. And still, even to this day, there's a lot of things that will come up when we talk about child sexual abuse, escaping from physical harm. In 1999, I was confronted with things that I never had been confronted with, and up until that, there were still things going on. And when I share this, I share my heart about abuse. First of all, the abusers are not allowed to return back here. Okay, let me just be quite honest. Unless they're on an invitation list, they have to do something to help us. We've asked for double patrols. We've asked for a lot of things from our law enforcement to help us put a stop to trafficking because we have been through this all our lives. And human sex trafficking is a reality for somebody who has felt like they were falsely imprisoned. These are just small and sometimes major things that lead to death, murder, and abuse. And I have been on the side of that fist before, and I've been through it, and I'm not afraid to say what I think about our abusers. Our abusers don't have the same rights they think they have. And I could take you to Branson, Missouri, 2013, and I could take you through some things that that still to this day trouble me. It extremely troubles me because I'm from Pittsburgh, and I'm not the kind of person that travels outside of Pittsburgh. And I remember clearly when I started my blog in 2007, how much abuse I was enduring. And I thought in my own right I was protecting my abuser. In reality, I was putting myself in more danger than I needed to be in. And protecting your abuser is not going to help you. And I learned this firsthand because my abuser would go back to his abusers, and that's when the real abuse really got out of hand. And I was in Clarion coming back from New York, and I thought, most of you guys, we've been able to go to work, go to school, function like human beings, you know what I mean? Not around abuse, not so. I applied to go to CCAC, and I had to withdraw several times from school. I couldn't graduate school like the rest of my friends could because my abusers didn't allow me to live my own life. And my abusers have spent their lives taking out their abuse out on me. And most of my friends were in high school, and I was fortunate enough to talk to my friend from grade school, her dad, who is a private investigator in Florida now, I believe. I know she lives in Florida, and her name is Sherry Altmar. And whenever we left our foster care program, I had requested for my sister Monica to go with me to South Carolina. And that's when the journey began to walk away from Pennsylvania. And when you go to Project Pennsylvania, really to offer freedom for a victim is like it's the ticket out. It's getting a driver's license for the first time. It's going to the DMV. It's a lot of things that probably most of us would take for granted. But for me, that's the victimization, the cycle of abuse. And what I feared the most is that if I don't speak out on it, it'll keep going on. So I had to go through a lot of things to get my sister to be able to drive with me to South Carolina. And I started doing more homework, and as the homework I continued to do because she was in fact living at the foster home, and there was a bunch of things that I was not aware of. I was aware of it, but not to the extent I'm aware of it now, and it troubles me what we had to survive. And I basically we packed it up and we drove my friend's dad's vehicle and got out of here. And and it was like the best. It was one of the most best escapes ever at that moment. And we're still gonna have our opportunity to escape again. And yeah, and getting in the car and packing it up and leaving. Years of abuse. It was like, once I dealt with my abuser basically was making comments. He was going online. He was basically looking for ways to rape and abuse my sister. And I snapped. And when I learned about what he was doing, I contacted these programs. And I would say that when I found out that he was online and I don't know what kind of people he talked to at that point. I just know I finally learned what was going on. And up to that point, things were relatively okay. Life wasn't perfect because we were coming out of a very difficult time. My dad had just died. And there have been several sexual assaults and rapes, and have been even up to today. And that's why we're putting a stop to it. We need law enforcement to help us. We need the help of the U.S. Navy SEALs and Vets for Child Rescue, because this is what's been going on. So I started talking to an admiral in the Navy who works on missions like this, and we are getting out of this once and for all. We have been screaming out for help for a while, and I contacted my relatives and I said the same thing, like, we are leaving this, whatever it's about. They cannot return back and talk to the victims, not without talking to a few Navy SEALs in the process, because we cannot live this way anymore. We cannot go back and be re-victimized or abused by the same people. And if it means pressing charges, if it means going to court, so be it. We did not go through this to be re-victimized or abused. And fortunately, there was a news conference just recently by the state of Pennsylvania at the Department of Human Services about re-victimizing the same victims. And it's not uncommon for the same victims to be assaulted by different types of abusers. In fact, it's probably more common, especially when we talk about project traffic and human sex trafficking. So I'm pretty sure once you hear other stories about foster care being one of the places where a lot of the children and myself and a lot of people around you may have been victims of human trafficking. You'll know by looking at your life, and you'll say, what happened? Why didn't I go to school? Why couldn't I function like a normal kid? Why can't I go to the store like everybody else? And I was starting to feel that desperate feeling, like I feel like I'm being purposely trapped or purposely targeted. So I went up to the hospital, and we want to find out ways on help stopping human sex trafficking here in Butler County. You won't hear a whole lot of programs organized. They need to have these programs because here in the city of Butler, you'll see a lot of it on Main Street. You'll see a lot of people. There are people that have soliciting issues, soliciting drugs, soliciting sex, all kinds of different things. So you, as a member of the community, can help organize it. Now, I started a page. There's a lot of information that you can, create of your own. But what I would ask you is start with the hospital. Like if there's, they do this at North Hills Community Outreach. They have a food bank there. They also have a lot of programs here that I think are very good and have worked very well with families in need. And there are families that are just fed up with the abuse, period. So you will feel better when you know you could go to bed at night, you did something to put a stop to human sex trafficking. It's going on every day in your neighborhood here in the city of Butler. Every day. Somebody is targeting someone for human sex trafficking. And using innocent young people who are unaware, whether it be at high school, whether it be at college. I mean, at one point, whether it be here in the city of Butler or all the way up to Erie County or all the way to the state border, it spills over in West Virginia, Ohio, and really empowering law enforcement with the tools to put a stop to it by working together with families and victims of human trafficking. That's a great start. In fact, you'll get a lot of information from the victims themselves about human sex trafficking, daycares, fronting, all this stuff that goes on, and putting a stop to human sex trafficking, including the trafficking of drugs from Arkansas, from the border, and from Texas. And how many of us have had to live on exits and highways to escape abuse? So believe me, you're making a huge difference in this. Huge. When you speak out to abuse and share with your stories, there's free and confidential help and support. There's 24 hotlines. There's information out there. Just don't stay in it. Do what you have to do. If one program doesn't help you, there will be a program. Just be vigilant. This is a time to be vigilant. This is a time to not allow abuse to continue. Say no to abuse. Say no to this, because I said enough is enough. And the last time we had to put a PFA on our abuser, he had a 3-year probation, and we'll get there. Even if we're in our wheelchair, we will put a stop to human sex trafficking, drugs, whether it be at a recovery club or not. Put a stop to the trafficking of drugs, put a stop to it. By speaking out, by helping victims, you will feel so much better. There are places, there are ways to do this. There are programs everywhere that you can develop or even help develop. Contact local law enforcement on what you can do to help stop drugs and human trafficking in Butler County and throughout Pennsylvania. You can go to #Project Pennsylvania. You can be a force and you can make a difference. Don't ever think you cannot. You can make a difference, and you can put a stop to it by speaking out and supporting those who are arrested, who are right now in the middle of escaping abuse as we speak, including some of us. Thank you for listening.